Looks like we have enough for a quorum, so we'll call this meeting to order. I guess we're going to. So I'm new here, so I'm replacing Representative Jeff Stenquist, who's chaired this, and he did an awesome job. He did really well with this. This was kind of his baby, and I hope I can do just as well, or do. I'm going to attempt to do as well as I can. So I think we should show him a little bit of appreciation. I don't know if he's on or if he's checked out completely, but he did a really good job, and we're thankful for him. And yeah, I don't know. Should we have I don't know. I'd like to, if it's okay, have maybe the commissioners introduce themselves, and so I can kind of put together some faces with the names, if that's all right.
I think that'd be fine. And also, there is no camera turned on inside the room. Paul, if you can check on that.
Okay. Can we start? Should we start over on the left side here? If you can introduce yourself, that'd be wonderful. And who you represent?
Yeah, I'm Emily Meadows. I'm a staff member with the Division of Outdoor Recreation.
Carly Lanch, also a staff member.
I'm Patrick Morrison, a staff member of the Division Outdoor Rec.
Natalie Randall, Managing Director for the Office of Tourism.
Kate Bradshaw, I serve on the Bountiful City Council, and I am here as one of the 2 representatives from the Utah League of Cities and Towns.
Okay. I'm Jason Kyle. I'm I'm a appointed member of the House of Representatives.
And I'm Jason Curry, Director of the Division of Outdoor Recreation.
I'm Pete Gruey. I work for All Trails Point as a outdoor industry seat on this. Yeah, sorry.
Well, mine's much easier. My name's Scott Strong. I'm the Director of Utah State Parks.
Okay.
Thank you.
And who do we have online?
Jerry, go ahead.
Oh. Hi, I'm Josh Fanger. I apologize I can't be there today. I work for UDOT and I am the director of our Trails and Transit group, and I am currently in the airport in Newark. So apologies if I'm muted most of the time.
All right.
I'm Commissioner Taylor from Garfield, and I represent UAC, Utah Association of Counties.
Okay.
I'm Kelly Goonan. I'm an associate professor of outdoor recreation and parks and tourism at Southern Utah University. So I'm down here in Cedar City, and I serve as the conservation representative.
Okay. All right. Do we have any other commissioners online? Okay. We'll move on then. And I think our rules are actually say that the commission will select a chairperson, and so I think we need to entertain a motion to select a chairperson, if we can do that.
I would be happy to make a motion to nominate Representative Jason Kyle as our chair.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
All right, the motion's in order. We'll put it to a vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay. I guess I didn't get lucky enough to have someone else, but all right. All right, I'm happy to do it, and hope I can do a decent job. So, all right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda then. We'll approve the minutes from April 25th, our last, is that, when was the last?
They were sent out on April 25th. The last meeting was in November.
Okay, the last, when was the exact date? Was it November 29th?
I'd have to look.
Let me find those. I think I had them here. November 19th. Okay. Well, entertain a motion to approve the minutes from November 19th.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
To approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
All right. That motion's in order. We'll, the motion is that we approve the minutes from November 19th. All in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. And now we'll take it to Jason Curry here for a debrief of the legislative session.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And got some slides that we'll show on this, and just go through a few of the bills that affected outdoor recreation in one way or another. And make sure that I can see them. Maybe I can just turn around. All right, there they are. So just going through in no particular order other than we'll do the House bills first, but HB 439, that was a grant that made some modifications to our off-highway vehicle recreation grant. Enabled us to give upfront funding up to 100%, and it also changed some of the definitions of outdoor recreation infrastructure to include a few things that we really needed to have added to the list. Not major substantive changes, but makes things easier for some of those folks that are trying to get OHV work done on the ground. The pictures that I selected also for this slide are significant. They're from last week's trail conference, one of the workshops there in the field of right there in the Kanab area. And anyway, HB 200. That was a very simple one, but it got a lot of play in the media. The media, I think, misunderstood what this was. Several years ago, there was a law passed that made it possible for the state of Utah to put funding into our national parks and other federal lands when there was a budget emergency, fiscal emergency in the federal government. And for a long time, we've had that. We've done it a couple times. Natalie at Utah Office of Tourism and our office coordinate with GOEO to fund that and prioritize where that money goes to work. But it has never been possible for us to fund or provide funding for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service installations, including Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge, which is a significant contributor to the economy up there in the Brigham City area. So we just added that to the possibilities for our priority list. But the media interpreted it as it was the first time we were doing this. Anyway, pretty simple change. HB 456, that was the infamous TRT bill from Representative Bolander, added several options and flexibility for counties to be able to increase their TRT, and it also provided a statewide 0.75% increase for transient room tax. And that 0.75% increase is distributed out, and a third of it comes to the Division of Outdoor Recreation for a new grant program. It is for offsetting the costs of visitor impacts, especially in rural counties. So counties of the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th class will be eligible to have their costs for search and rescue, EMS, road impacts, and solid waste management. They'll be able to apply for grants and receive funding, about $7 million roughly per year to the division. So we've got a bunch of work to do to set that up, to get a board in place. It enacts a new board of 5 persons, and then we'll have to set up a structure of how to receive grant applications, how to score them, and how to award them. And our staff under Patrick's got a lot of experience with that, so we're excited to be able to do it, and it fills a really unique and much needed gap. HB 309, this is Wildlife Management Area Access. Makes it so that you cannot access a wildlife management area unless you have a hunting or fishing license. It also provides for some exceptions to that through the Wildlife Board. There were some concerned parties early on when this bill was being talked about, starting a couple of years ago, including the Bonneville Shoreline Trail folks and other trail advocate groups, that this would exclude trail users that aren't necessarily anglers or hunters. And so I think there's a mechanism for them to be able to request that, and we'll see if the Wildlife Board provides any kind of an exception for that. Otherwise, it's a crime to now go on a WMA without a hunting or fishing license. HB 98, Outdoor Recreation Liability, and this one was, I think this was Representative Schallenberger. He had a couple of things added to our liability list in outdoor recreation. As you know, private property owners are protected from claims against them for liability as far as outdoor recreation activities that are not charged for. So there's a long list there, including camping and hiking and even rock climbing, but via ferrata climbing was added to this list, as well as one other. Do you remember what it was, Carly? I can't remember. Maybe it was just via ferrata, but and then HB 34, this was a bill to enable, to create a process to create additional state campgrounds. I don't know if you have anything additional on that one, Scott. It's mainly, relates to you guys, but you guys are already sort of hearing from folks that are interested in participating in that.
Yeah, and just very briefly, this would allow state parks to go into federal property, whether that be Forest Service, BLM, and look at opportunities to build and maintain and operate a campground. And we've talked about some of those in our backyard right here.
Yeah, literally. And then SB 52, this is a vehicle registration bill, and it referred to a lot as the Montana issue. Basically, a lot of people have been registering their vehicles, including boats, very expensive boats, out of state in places like Montana, where there are businesses set up to basically farm this in, and then they escape paying property taxes, they escape paying their sales tax, as well as their registration fee that comes to the division. So closes that loophole a little bit tighter. It was never really a loophole, but made it difficult for the tax commission to pursue those cases. And so this enables the tax commission to enact a penalty, and we're hopeful that it will increase the amount of revenue coming to all three of those sources, and help those folks that have registered their boats and vehicles out of state contribute and do their part here in the state. And then SB 2, not necessarily in title, but in intent language, there was some intent language added there to compel the Division of Outdoor Recreation and mainly PLIPCO, I saw Nicole was here, to create a list of priority areas for outdoor recreation infrastructure development. And so we're underway working on that right now under Nicole's guidance. And then next slide, just a couple of fiscal items. There were two major appropriations that we were appropriated this year. One for our maintenance shop, the shop right out back behind this building that you can kind of hear sometimes. It's a small building created in 1975 to service the relatively small fleet of boats and off-highway vehicles at that time. But it's a long time coming. So we've got a $21 million appropriation over the next 2 years from 2 restricted accounts to be able to fund a new shop. And then a ranger residence in Flaming Gorge for it's extremely difficult to find housing in that area, at least housing that is located right there close to the resource where the response times are needed. And that's it as far as the legislative update. And if there are any questions, I'll answer those. And if not, we'll move on.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions about what happened during the session? If there are any bad bills, I probably didn't vote for them. So, all right, let's go. Take it to agenda item number 4. Then we have Jorge and Ty Hunter with the DOR staff. I'm going to provide an update for the Utah Boating Grant Program. Take it away.
Is this one working? Awesome. Great. This feels super official. I love it. Well, my name is Jorge Vasquez, and I'm with the Division of Outdoor Recreation. And first, I'd like to thank you, Chair Kyle, for giving us the opportunity to really speak on this one. Really, I'm in charge of the Utah Boating Recreation Grant and kind of the administration of that grant, and more so, really, the development of that grant. And I'm going to actually pass out this handout that I have for you, and I'll keep on going. So really with this one, I mean, I think the easiest way to kind of go about it and to kind of explain it is really talking about like what the Utah Boating Recreation Grant is and kind of when it was created and when it went through legislative session. So that happened back in 2023, and it passed through for substitute when it was HB 299 with the boating amendments by Representative Snyder. And what really happened here is we had the uniform fee that basically took that fee and cut it in half, and which was distributed between the counties and the actual division itself. And then that one half went into the Utah Boating Recreation Grant, the restricted account there. And the really big changes here is really during the 2024 calendar year, we saw that it was kind of being improperly divided in terms of like the actual fees itself. And so we went through some legislative changes this last legislative session with Senator McKay, and that was with SB 200 watercraft amendments. It ended up reducing the actual uniform fee by 50%, which ended up creating the Utah Boating Grant Tax. And then the really exciting part to this was that it is revenue neutral. And this is supposed to take into effect January 1st of 2026. Really, the biggest thing here is that we kind of feel more comfortable with actually going through and administering the actual grant program, as we're going to launch it this upcoming year. And so we submitted rulemaking. We submitted the administrative rules. And we're essentially this is more just notification and information for you all. That's what we did there. So if there's any questions, I would love to take questions.
Do we have any questions from the committee or the public?
No questions, but just compliments to Jorge and to Ty for structuring this. It's been a heavy lift and a little bit of a long time coming with the passage of the initial bill that created the grant, and now kind of correcting the collection side of it. So great job, and looking forward to having another grant.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we'll take this to agenda item number 5, Outdoor Recreation Initiative update with Patrick and Carly.
Okay, thank you. So I think maybe first thing, I just want to give a shout out to our Attorney General staff, Nicole. I mean, we had, because I want to give like kind of a contract update, and they did so much work with us to help us with a lot of these land acquisition contracts. And so I'm so happy to report that we have every project under contract from last year, save for our federal partners. So we're still working on just some of the difficulties they're having. So that's the big general update. Looking at just these specific projects, but the Guacamole Mesa, this is a really opportunity for us to expand our capacity to actually perform the project management on this NEPA process, because it's just been a barrier of capacity issues for them, and just an amazing site. We got to go down to Zion, meet with Zion Forever, Zion National Park, some of the landowners, the BLM, just really fruitful meeting to just hear kind of their concerns. And we're at the point now we've been able to kind of go back and forth with kind of the checklists for the whole environmental clearance process, and we're ready now to submit it through our state procurement and kind of project manage that NEPA process. So really, really excited there. I don't know if y'all are subscribers to the Cash Daily. Was that the name of the publication? But it was just really cool to see one of the 2023 awards was a property in Wellsville, the Sherman Hills. Sherwood. No matter what, I'm always going to say the wrong one. The Sherwood Hills. So that purchase was made public yesterday, and that was one of the projects that we recently got under contract. Thanks to the work from our Attorney General's staff. Really excited to see that. And then our councils are up and running. So, this year we have 5 councils, and I think the engagement is at an all-time high. I think people have been really, really excited with the councils. We'll be working throughout the summer to kind of work and identify these kind of locally vetted projects that we'll do formal rankings with those councils in September, October, and have it all for you in November. So those are the first, and I'll pass it over to Carly for our last 2.
Another shout out to our Attorney General staff. We've made some progress on the North Wash Boat Ramp project as well, and working really closely with the solicitor's office. So we are making slow but sure progress on that project. And we are, again, about to wrap up the procurement for a recreation participation trends study that you all approved in the fall. So similar updates to Patrick. We're getting things contracted and moving. And our next item would be about the Central Region Long Range Recreation Planning. So I will send it over to Emily here.
Go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, thanks. Central Region Long Range Planning effort is going along. We're currently in the review of our vendors. So we put it out for RFP, and now we're reviewing those 2 and we'll be selecting them later this week. So it's really exciting. We have 2 members on our review board or review committee that are from, Association of Government down in Central Utah, as well as Sanpete County. So we had great representation there as well. That's for that one.
Okay, yeah, and the outdoor recreation planning assistance update.
Yeah, so our outdoor recreation planning assistance program, we call it ORPA. It's in full swing. This is the first time, we're running it as a grant, and already there's 40 applications in draft mode, with a third of those applications totaling of 1.6 million requests. So we have 1.5 million to award, so it's going to be very competitive. I'm really excited. It'll close next week, and then we'll have our internal staff review, and then our review committee scoring, and the scoring meeting on June 5th. So things are high demand for planning assistance, which is awesome.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the committee or the public on those? All right, we'll go to the next. Go to D here. Back to Patrick for the 5 Mile Design and Engineering Reauthorization.
Okay, thank you. So this concerns just one of our awards from last year, which was a $500,000 award for to the BLM for some design engineering work for the 5 Mile area. And, reflective of kind of the current issues they're having in entering in formal agreements, signing contracts. We've had a number of calls. We also have Andrew Abadanza from the BLM on the call if we need to answer any questions. But we're just coming to ask for a reauthorization of this award, where we would hold it internally as the state, and we would essentially procure with a design engineering firm and work hand in glove with the BLM on this site. But rather than any transfer of funds, it would stay with us, and we would just kind of operate it within that $500,000 as the project manager. So. And then we do have, kind of the example motion language. I think that clarifies, what essentially we're looking at. And then, as I said, we do have Andrew online right now if anybody has any questions about this project specifically.
Got it. Does anybody from the commission have any questions about it?
I'll make a motion that we approve this request. It's been an ongoing advantage and often highlighted feature of the Watershed Restoration Initiative, that the federal government and the difficulties they have with procurement is a real roadblock for them. And they love WRI because it enables them to work with the state to co-manage projects and leverage the easier procurement process through the state. And this is another opportunity for them to do that, but on the recreation side. So I'd advocate for it and move that we approve this request.
Okay, so we have a motion to reauthorize the full award amount to the project, to the state of Utah to co-manage the project with BLM and utilize the state's procurement processes. All in favor, say aye. 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 Oh.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, go ahead.
We need to second that motion.
Oh.
I was going to say I'll second.
Do a roll call vote.
Okay. Got it.
I will second Scott Strong.
All right, Scott Strong has seconded. We will do a roll call vote.
Let's see. Carly, do you have names that you can administer the roll call vote?
Yes. Let's do a roll call in this room here first. Natalie Randall.
Aye.
Kate Bradshaw.
Aye.
Representative Jason Kyle.
Aye.
Jason Curry.
Aye.
Pitt Gruey.
Aye.
Scott Strong.
Make sure and turn your mic on for the recording. Aye.
We've had a unanimous so far, and let's go online. I'm just going to go down the list here. We have Commissioner Jerry Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Josh Van Jura,
Aye.
Kelly Goonan,
Aye.
and that's all.
Thank you. I guess I rule that passes unanimously. And these rules are a little bit different than our committees up at the legislature, but I appreciate the help. So, all right, we'll go to the next item on our agenda, the Colorado River Pathway. Go ahead, Patrick.
Great, thank you. So This one, this was a project that was approved 2 years ago in the 2023. An amazing project. It's kind of filling that last little bit of the Colorado River pathway. It's going to be quite an amazing ribbon cutting, if and when we get there. This is a UDOT project, and again, we have Eric Buell online to help answer any questions. But as we are working, initially it was awarded to the BLM, but UDOT is also working on it, and we went back and forth a number of times, but mainly Eric did a lot of work working with their attorneys, and they ultimately found the best way that we can manage this funding is to transfer it from that BLM contract into UDOT. What was the exact term they call it? I think Eric can answer it, but ultimately we want to just be able to transfer this to UDOT so they can kind of deliver the project, as opposed to having it wrapped up in the Bureau of Land Management field office. And so, yeah, we do have example motion language, and Eric is online if we need to have him answer any more questions from the UDOT side.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Eric online? All right, we'll entertain a motion if somebody would like to make it.
I'll make a motion to support the transfer of the project to UDOT.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. That was Pitt. All right. Yep. All right. So we have a motion.
I'm sorry. I feel that I must ask for the ability to abstain from this vote just because I have a hand in both as the director of the Utah Trail Network. So okay. I would ask to be able to abstain from voting, please.
Got it. Okay. I'll restate the motion. So so Commissioner Josh Van Jura is going to recuse himself, but the motion, because he works for UDOT, but the motion is that we reauthorize the full awarded amount to the Colorado River Pathway Project to the Utah Department of Transportation instead of the Bureau of Land Management. So we'll do a roll call vote.
All right, now we know the drill. I'll start in the room again with Commissioner Natalie Randall.
Aye.
Kate Bradshaw.
Aye.
Representative Jason Kyle.
Aye.
Director Jason Curry.
Aye.
Pitt Gruey.
Aye.
Scott Strong.
Aye.
All right, we'll go online with the exception of Commissioner Josh Van Jura. So we'll start with Commissioner Jerry Taylor.
Aye.
We'll go to Kelly Goonan.
Aye.
And that should be all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I roll that passes unanimously.
If I may add one detail, and Eric, please chime in if I'm incorrect, but we had a coordination meeting with the UDOT team yesterday, and they're anticipating breaking ground on this project in the spring of next year, which is so exciting. So just wanted to share that.
If you're familiar with this is the trail, basically the path between the highway and the river. That after you finish the end of the whole enchilada, leads you back to the city of Moab. So I no longer have to ride in traffic to get there. Very exciting.
That'll be, a lot of people will really like that, a lot of bikers, so, or cyclists, is that what you call them? All right.
Yeah, distinguished bikers and cyclists.
Yeah, all right. So, that's exciting. Okay, we'll move to the next item on the agenda. Agenda item number 6, statewide requests, the Zion Forever project, National Park Service funding discussion. Do we have somebody here to present on that? Come on up. Thank you.
Do a microphone check. We do have a presentation. We can, if it works, Carly. Okay.
Go ahead and state who you are and who you represent as well.
Absolutely. I'm Stephanie Lyon with the Zion Forever project, representing the Zion Forever project and our nonprofit peer associations across the national parks and units of the state of Utah.
I'm Heath Hansen. I am with Washington County in the Greater Zion Tourism and Convention Office. We're here to support the request by Zion Forever.
Okay,
and we have a few folks joining us virtually that I'll make mention to as well. We have Zion Forever Chief Operating Officer Chris Horton and Superintendent of Zion National Park Jeff Bradybaugh and Washington County Commissioner Adam Snow.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you for making time for us today. We know that you all had a very busy agenda at our first meeting of the year, so we're grateful to be in front of you today And grateful for the continued support of the Outdoor Adventure Commission in support of Utah's outdoor recreation landscapes. Carly, you can go ahead and flap this way. We're here today to talk a little bit about seeking approval for the Outdoor Adventure Commission to submit a $5 million out-of-sequence funding proposal in support of Utah's national parks, monuments, and recreations. This is a statewide unified effort led by the Zion Forever Project with support from our peer associations from Bryce Canyon, Arches, Capitol Reef, Canyonlands, and beyond. Some of our monuments, Golden Spike, and others that we're working with now. The goal is to preserve vital infrastructure and maintain essential services to protect the visitor experience and the economic impact that these parks bring to the state of Utah. So a little bit about who we are. So the Zion Forever Project is the official nonprofit partner to Zion National Park, Pipe Spring and Cedar Breaks National Monuments, and the Dixie National Forest. Together with our peer associations across the state, we have about a century of experience in supporting the National Park Service. So our goal in the work that we put forward, our purpose is to fund gaps, respond to urgent needs, and to facilitate the public-private partnerships for our park partners. So why we're here today. Go ahead, Carly. Thank you. Just to talk a little bit about some of the current challenges that are facing our parks in the moment. So some of those significant challenges that Utah's national parks are facing today. We have an increased visitation. Visitation for our parks is up again this year. We're pacing on an increased trend again this year. Combined with federal resources, the decrease in federal funding. We're facing deferred maintenance backlogs, workforce reductions, and hiring freezes are impacting daily operations. And strains on infrastructure. This places strains on infrastructure, visitor services, and safety measures within these spaces. Without short-term stabilization, decades of state investment can be placed at risk for deterioration. And that's why this request matters now and why we're here in front of you all today. Utah's parks face a combined deferred maintenance of $387 million. And that covers things like wastewater, emergency access, and basic visitor facilities. These needs directly impact safety, satisfaction, and the operational capacity of these parks. So the funding that we're seeking here today bridges urgent gaps and prevents deeper economic and operational consequences for these spaces. I'm sorry, I skipped one right through, Carly. Actually, we could go back a slide, Carly. I just want to focus here on a couple of photos on this slide. This represents some of the park projects across our parks. These are primarily focused on the Mighty 5 national parks in the state of Utah. These photos here of some of the challenges and projects ahead of us, and we'll speak a little bit more to that here in a moment. Thanks, Carly. So this proposal aligns with the Outdoor Adventure Commission and the ORI's strategic vision by addressing overcrowding, deferred maintenance, and delivering ready-to-launch projects. Right now, we're working collaboratively across multiple NPS units in the state of Utah to work to protect Utah's landscapes, which strengthen local communities and ensure safe, consistent access for all visitors, local residents, and our tourist visitors as well. Okay, Corey. So here, in this slide here, we're looking at photos of some of our gateway communities. Communities like Springdale, Moab, Bryce, and Torrey. And these photos reflect local restaurants, lodging, and services that offer thriving jobs in the local residences. Healthy parks mean stable jobs. Healthy parks mean local business support and sustainable tourism. Utah's national parks generate nearly $3 billion annually and support over 26,000 jobs. Gateway communities located in Utah's rural counties, they depend on consistent park operations. These operations help support business stability, workforce retention, and tourism activity. Sustained park infrastructure is directly tied to rural and statewide economic resilience. So how are these funds utilized, and how do they start to address some of these things we're speaking to today? We're currently working now with the superintendents across the state, from our national parks and monuments and beyond, working with Bryce Canyon, Arches Canyonlands, Capitol Reef, Golden Spike, and more. Working to identify park projects that are urgent, ready to implement, and they're focused on things like trail repair, access, sanitation, and emergency responses. Zion Forever is prepared to manage these funds. We can do so with transparency and equity. We've got backed by rigorous compliance and strong coordination with our park partners. So we work closely with our direct park partners, but with the parks and our peer groups across the states. We also have adept experience in working with the team at the Utah Department of Outdoor Rec in managing funds. We did receive funding through the Outdoor Adventure Commission 2 years ago. Carly. So we're here just to talk, just to kind of go back to our main points, and then I'd like to turn some time over to our friends at Washington County. We're here asking for approval to move forward for a formal request out of sequence for funding to stabilize park operations, protect infrastructure, and support the rural economies that depend on them. And it's an aligned investment in the long-term health of Utah and its parks. So I want to take a moment to turn it over to Heath here with Washington County.
Yeah, so I mean, the economic impact is $3 billion statewide. I'm about 1/3 of that, just speaking from a Washington County perspective, almost 1/3 of that statewide amount comes from Zion National Park, almost $970 million annually of economic impact. And that includes just in the gateway communities outside of Zion, they get about $650 million of direct spending attributable to Zion National Park every year. These are small communities. They depend heavily on these parks to sustain their economy, sustain the livelihoods of the citizens. And so we're supporting this request because there's been some uncertainty within the National Park Service. Uncertainty is never good for a tourism economy. And so we think that the funding that is being requested by Zion Forever will help to solidify some key projects that are needed to go forward in the park so that we can continue to provide certainty to the visitors and provide a positive visitor experience. Commissioner Snow, do you have anything to add to that from Washington County?
No, not a ton. I would only add just that in addition to the numbers that are shared in direct spending, every job in Washington County, residency of over 200,000 people, 64,000 daily visitors on average, 365 days a year. All of those are tied to Zion National Park. That's the impact of how important that park is to us. Whether you're an accountant or a lawyer or in construction, somehow you are tied back to Zion National Park. That's the importance of those mighty 5 parks to southern Utah. This is a major driver for us. It is our largest economic driver by far, a single economic driver. And so, and comes close to rivaling all of the construction in my county, which is, as we know, is one of the fastest growing counties in the nation for most of the last 20 years. So this is critically important. The county has put in funds, the state has put in funds. We will continue to do so. This just helps us leverage even more, and has already been stated, is aligned with the Outdoor Adventure Commission and with what the intent of the legislature has been so far. And so we strongly support this, and we will add funds to this to help fulfill these missions as well.
We'd like to turn time over for questions, insight.
Okay, I will take it to the committee.
Mr. Chair, I have a question, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So I think it was Commissioner Snow that just mentioned that Washington County would also be contributing funds. How much, and would it be one-time funds or some type of ongoing funds?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'd have to vote on that. I can't make the decision by myself. As nice as that would be, right? But we have and will continue to put in funds to help Zion National Park. We've offered, and it's kind of project specific. So how much would depend on what Superintendent Brady Baugh needs at the time, what's most critical, what we can afford. But yes, we have and would continue to expend transient room tax funds for whatever the necessary projects would be at the time, both ongoing and one time.
And then I have a follow-up question, if I might. I wanted to make sure I understood this. These funds would be specific to Zion National Park, or they would be shared by the other 4 national parks in addition to Zion?
They would be shared. So we focused right out of the gate on the Mighty 5 national parks. So Bryce, Canyonlands, Capitol Reef, Arches, and Zion. And then we've extended conversation, being mindful to some of our rural counties that depend really strongly on some of our monuments as well, like Golden Spike. So we've had conversations with superintendents there. There are some small, as we're beginning to have these conversations on what the needs are there, some of these smaller spaces are able to have really large impact and return on much smaller asks. And so when we take a look at what $5 million does for these spaces and how it's disseminated, we're in conversation with our parks and our peers right now based on the economic impact of each park and area, the visitation, and the deferred maintenance backlog to break down on an agreement of how the funds will be distributed for the greatest need and the return of each region.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, when we get to the point where maybe some discussion just among the committee, I have a question for our director and then some other thoughts, so I'll hold off until you reach that point.
Got it. Does anybody have any more questions for our presenter? Okay, go ahead, Pitt.
All right. Thanks for sharing this information. So I have a couple questions for you. First off, at All Trails, we're monitoring the situation of this through data to help at a federal level, right? And what we see in national parks right now, all over the country, is increased visitation, which you mentioned, right? Like, we're not seeing a drop, even though funding has been cut and staffing has been cut. And this is going to be kind of an anecdotal question, and I'll look this up later, and we can have these conversations. But so we're seeing visitation and interest in visitation, because we can measure that based off of how many people are looking at trails and national parks across the country, planning their summer road trips, everything else. But we're actually, as people visit that, we're starting to see a decrease in trail satisfaction score when they visit these, right? Whether it's crowds, garbage, the bathrooms weren't open, whatever, right? And then we collect that data on how people are experiencing that and what they're saying about it. So we're seeing this V start to happen, right? More visitation, quality experience drop. I'm going to lay this up for you. So, and that's, I haven't looked specifically at Utah yet. This is the Great Smokies, this is in Joshua Tree, this is other areas. Would you say that's pretty standard for the Mighty 5 as well? Those same trends? Are the superintendents that you're talking to, expressing the same thing?
That's accurate, Pitt. We are having very similar conversations with the superintendents across our parks, with our peer organizations and nonprofits that support, and from stakeholders in each region, speaking to some of those similar concerns. As we started to talk about what each park needs, looking to, our conversations begin in how can we share resources? How can we be creative? How are these parks working together to support in these spaces to maximize and leverage what is existing and requests like this? And as we take a look at some of the projects and the concerns that have come forward, a lot of the focus is on access, trail repair, and sanitation. And as we take a look at some of the new orders that have been placed out on the parks to remain accessible and open, that speaks to the priority and the mission of Zion Forever, Zion National Park, and some of our other parks, of saying we want to ensure that as local residents are coming to this space and returning. As a local resident myself, I grew up in rural Utah. We spend a lot of time in these places, and they're important to us, but also to our visitors and our tourism sector that come in. Oftentimes this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to visit these spaces, and we want to ensure that we're doing everything we can to manage that visitor experience and that accessibility. So what's access, parking, the parking structures, sanitation within the parks. We want to make sure there's restroom facilities open and available, and those are some concerns. And trailhead repair and trail repair.
Okay, I got one more question. Okay. And Heath might be able to answer this better with his experience working in the federal government. So obviously we want to support and help our parks here locally. Ultimately, right, being federal agencies, we want to see a support in Congress and funding to return and staffing to return for the long term, right? In that case, if the people in charge in Washington, D.C. do start to seek out solutions and whatnot. I'm just curious, like, the reality of the time frame of that. Like, how many seasons will our gateway communities have to go through a struggle, even if Congress finally does say, all right, we're going to fund something, or we're going to bring staffing back or something like that? I know that the light doesn't switch that fast. So from, maybe Heath, your experience working in Senator Lee's office and things like that, what's the reality of the impact? Like, how many seasons could this possibly impact our rural communities, if we don't step in and help?
Yeah, well, we hope it's just this season and they can figure things out, but the reality is the federal government doesn't run as efficiently as our state or local governments, unfortunately. And so that's the uncertainty that I was speaking to. Is the short answer is we just don't know how long the staffing shortages, how long the funding shortages are going to last. And so we're hoping that this can be, just a one-time stopgap to help get us through this season. We are actively working with our congressional delegation. We are voicing our concerns and all the information that we have locally to them so they can, take these messages back to Congress and to the administration. Shorter answer is it's uncertain at this point, okay, which makes the nature and the urgency of this request more urgent, I guess.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm new on this commission, but I think the legislative intent for our budget was for more types of capital projects and things. From what I've heard, we haven't done a lot of operational things. I don't think that was the legislative intent either. And $5 million is about a quarter of our budget. So if we have capital projects that we need to do, why wouldn't we just go through our normal process and do that?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Representative Kyla. Right now we're focusing on critical projects within the park that focus on infrastructure that meet the needs or the parameters of the Outdoor Adventure Commission, that then frees up funding within each park unit to be able to prioritize the needs as we get ramped up into our peak season now. So we're starting through the peak season, primarily, across the state through the parks and the monuments, but primarily through the Mighty Five. And these are critical timeframes for the visitor experience and the operation. And so the why and the now and the here leads back to that peak season and wanting to make sure that the operations are managed successfully through the peak season, and then taking a look. So for example, Zion is working on a critical sewer infrastructure project with large support from the county. This project can and will relieve up to $300,000 a year that Zion National Park spends on porta potties in the canyon. And then reducing those porta potties also improves the visitor experience. So that's kind of a light example from some of our parks. We also see Capitol Reef working on leach pond projects that, a $30,000 investment helps and affects 1.3 million visitors annually, and ensures that large groups of visitors can have that positive experience, trail infrastructure, etc. So to your point, yes, some of these projects can absolutely go through grant cycles, and I think our goal is to work with you all to identify which projects can meet the parameter of the Outdoor Adventure Commission for an ask now, and then which projects can we help our peer groups across the state find the appropriate resources, both here within the state through the normal grant cycles and then beyond.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, is there anyone from the public that would like to?
Josh,
Could I?
Commissioner Angera has a question.
Oh, Josh, go ahead.
Oh, Josh, me? Sorry. Sorry. So this additional funding that's being requested for capital projects, do we know if the federal funding that's being withheld for these capital projects are related to any existing executive orders? Let's be honest, is it anything with immigration executive orders or DEI federal executive orders that this funding is being requested to replace funding that's currently withheld because of that.
And not to my understanding, I'll turn time, Superintendent Brady, if you have any insight there, I'll turn it to you here in just a moment. But a lot of the executive orders and secretarial orders that we're looking at now are just ensuring that the parks are accessible and open. And as we take a look at increased visitation and reduction in forces and staffing, where are we finding that balance to ensure visitor access, visitor safety, and visitor experience? But Jeff, if you have any insight to add to that, or Commissioner Snow, please feel free to offer.
Yeah, thanks for the question. The executive orders themselves are not, they don't dictate budget decisions directly. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The executive order that Stephanie referred to, the secretarial order actually on keeping parks open and accessible is the most direct order that we have relative to our park operations. So our priorities are safety, public health, and access. So the projects that we would contemplate here would be exactly those. In order to provide public access, we need to deal with repairs that are both in the safety realm and in the public health realm. And Stephanie noted a couple of those. So that's how those things relate.
Okay.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Natalie.
Thank you for coming and presenting. I think I have two, one maybe for Zion Forever and then one just generally for what we're actually voting on today. So for Zion Forever, you'd mentioned that this is for all 5 national parks. From the Office of Tourism, we acknowledge that parks are critical to our visitor economy across the state, especially in those rural communities. As we navigate that, stakeholders are important. I know you mentioned a few of the stakeholders. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit more? You mentioned that Washington County, you're here, Heath, Commissioner Snow's online. I know Commissioner Taylor's online too. I'd be interested maybe in hearing from him as well. Some gateway communities are impacted even more, as you can imagine, when you compare, for example, Washington County and Zion, but then you look at Bryce and Garfield County and the importance. So just what are those conversations looking like currently in this proposal? And are other counties planning to contribute to this as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, Natalie. Thank you. We are in conversation. I can speak to behalf to Zion Forever Project first, and the Zion region. Washington County is a primary partner of the work that we do in our region, but we also work with our local municipalities and surrounding counties, so Kane County and Iron County as well. And have strong support in those spaces, and continue to expand what stakeholders are at the table. So the Southwest region generally does a fantastic job of working collaboratively to combine resources, working from local universities to volunteer programs to provide help in some spaces, working with our municipalities, the counties surrounding, and then we're working with our peer nonprofit organizations at Bryce, the superintendent at Bryce Canyon as well. We know that we have local business owners that have strong support, and like Lance Sarah that runs Ruby's Inn. We work with folks and landowners like Kevin McClaws and Steve Nealman on the eastern boundary line of Zion National Park for the benefit of Kane County. And we are working with our friends at Arches and Golden Spike on identifying who the critical stakeholders in their region are that will need to be brought to the table to help us identify which priority projects are in need of funding that meet the boundaries of the OAC and have the highest impact for each region.
Have any other counties committed any funding to this effort too?
We haven't made it through those direct conversations just yet, Natalie, but we'll get there, and that's something that we can respond and provide some more information back towards.
And then a question on what we're voting about today. Are we voting on awarding them 5 million? Or are we voting on allowing us to further explore this?
I don't know that we're voting on anything unless somebody brings a
We
motion
haven't
forward.
made a motion at all yet. Yeah. Oh, you're good.
Can I jump in quickly? We have Tiffany and Chris from Zion Forever who've had their hand up for a while online. I don't know if folks in the room missed that, but they might be able to add something.
Yeah, go ahead, Tiffany.
This is Chris Horton with Zion Forever. I want to thank Pitt for bringing what he said, that waiting on federal funding could last several seasons, and we're well aware of that, and we're well aware of those channels as well. Natalie, Britt, and Tiffany and I are in Washington, D.C. right now to meet with our congressional delegation and others at the Department of Interior this week to work through those channels. But this funding can have an immediate effect on the gateway communities that we talk to, and definitely not just Washington County. We're talking about Iron County, Kane County, Garfield, Grand County. And to that point, as this started, we were focusing mainly on kind of the Mighty Five, as Stephanie mentioned. And as the conversations went on, we saw the need in other smaller park units, the monuments around the state, not just in the southern part of the state, and definitely see the need. This will give us an opportunity to work with, as Stephanie and Heath pointed out, to work with the counties, to work with the superintendents of the parks and park units to prioritize their needs and make an immediate impact to keep restrooms open, keep trails open, keep our visitors healthy, keep our visitors safe, fund EMS support, fund search and rescue support, and basically have an immediate impact on this season of tourism and keep our tourists coming back year after year because of their great experience that they have in the Utah National Parks.
And I want to touch really quickly on that why again, because I know we've kind of maybe gotten to it almost, but not quite. So the reason that Zion Forever is really coming to you with this request after consulting with our other park superintendents and other friends groups is because our organization does have capacity and experience in distributing grants out, but it also, we can help address the need. Some of our peers that help support these public lands don't have the depth on the bench with their staff to be able to address these concerns. And so while we would love to see them apply individually, right now their capacity is also maxed as well. And so that's one of the core reasons why Zion Forever is really stepping up and kind of holding some of this space to help ease those concerns by our peers across the state. And so I know we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I just wanted to make sure that that's reiterated as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. What's that? Commissioner Taylor, go for it.
Yeah, with this $5 million, do you have a breakout of what the ask is? I mean, you're asking for $5 million, but how is that $5 million going to be spent, and where? Being in Garfield County, this is new to me, but I'm interested in hearing more about it.
Yeah, I'll speak to that, and then Chris, I can turn it to you a bit. Our team has been working with our peers across the state, Commissioner, on identifying how the funds will be disseminated and proportionate across the state and to which parks, primarily focusing on visitation, deferred maintenance, and economic input or output. So those are some of the three key things that we'll be taking a look at as we break it down, and then the need expressed by each park as a priority, right? We're not asking parks and the monuments to throw us every need they have in hopes they can fund everything. We're being very strategic and working with these folks on what do you need now in order to ensure a positive season while we continue to work on these other resources, and we will. We're working with some of our parks and monuments now. Golden Spike is a great example of some additional funding for school buses to get students out to their space, right? That's a funding need. We're not going to bring that here. Zion Forever Project can step forward and work through normal grant cycles to provide those additional experiences. So there will be that additional cooperation. And Commissioner, we do hope that work through Superintendent Ireland and our friends and Bryce Canyon to be engaging to the commissioners here shortly. And then we know that our friends at Washington County have also stepped up in support of some of those communications and alignment to ensure that our county commissioners across the state that are affected and working with these parks are engaged.
We're currently working with the superintendents across the state to put together a list of projects that'll have immediate impact to keep the parks open and accessible. Also, working internally to look at proportions of visitation, economic impact, deferred maintenance across the parks within Utah to try to determine prioritization of how those funds will be dispersed. And I can say that given Bryce's economic impact to Garfield County and high visitation, that it would definitely be impactful to Garfield County's economy.
Okay, thank you. I guess we'll close up that comment and question portion here, and we'll move it to if anybody has any action they want to take.
I don't have any action, but I kind of want to discuss between commissioners here.
Sure, go ahead.
For a minute. So, and Jason, maybe you can answer this, or some staff members. So this is it sounds like, we're obviously not going to vote on, I don't think we're going to vote on anything today. It's to say if they want to put forth or go down this route to put forth an out of sync request, potentially. What I need to understand as a commissioner is, with the regional councils, right, that normally our voting process for allocating funds will be in the fall, right? So if we did this, is there any, it's hard to decide to allocate $5 million without actually knowing kind of what's in the pipeline, or at least some indications of what's in the pipeline, right? To say, yeah, $5 million, great, we want to support this. We all, we can agree that we support national parks and the Mighty Five and things like that. But if there's a project coming down the pipeline that's going to come through the regional councils this fall that we will need that, critical budget for, we don't want to find ourselves in the fall being like, oh, shoot, we need more money, right? So I guess my question is, with the regional councils, when will we as a commission start to get some insight into potential budgets? I don't even know if specific projects, but if we could get an idea of this region is teeing up, this much in requests, and this region's teeing up, X amount of dollars in requests, we get a better idea of what's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, I could certainly give that to you once I get it, just so everyone is aware of our timeline. We essentially just launched this year. I think I've got 2 requests in right now. I think the first was a $500,000 land acquisition. Perhaps a workable measurement is looking at last year's request. It was $80.5 million was requested through the regional councils last year, and the 19 million is what we ultimately gave away. So I'm not 100% sure, just looking at our UWARD grant cycle this year, we had $49.5 million requested in just that grant cycle, which was over double its request number. So I don't know if we can learn so much from that, because it's a different program, but yeah, I would happily update you as those come in, but I just couldn't tell you right now.
Yeah, so I think that just depends on the timing of when this official request would come in, that we'd want to vote on it. And also, what indicators do we have for the regular cycle to help us in that decision? So, yeah. But at the same time, I don't want to delay. Obviously, there's priority or potential priority here, because pushing their request off to the normal cycle could potentially shoot a lot of these communities in the foot for the summer season, right, and the busy season. So,
yeah. Got it. Kelly, do you have a comment?
Yes, so to kind of piggyback off of what Pitt said, I think it would be maybe beneficial to the commission if we do vote to accept a proposal from Zion Forever out of cycle, if they could at least get a letter of support from those regional councils, so that we're not completely sidestepping that process that we've established. I share a lot of the same concerns that Pitt has already voiced, but that might be a way that we can at least make those. If the Park Service units are already talking, they're aware, and hopefully they're county commissioners are aware and some of their other local elected officials are aware, but bringing that ask to the regional councils and perhaps also bringing that priority list that the NPS units are preparing, so that we have some idea of what the need is and how that money might be allocated. I would be much more comfortable with that than maybe just approving a request of $5 million. So I wanted to throw that out there for the rest of the commission to consider.
Yeah, some of the regional councils may be already ideating on some of the very same projects that would be prioritized in this ask, right? So I think it's just that working together and then making sure that they coincide with each other is probably the best move forward.
Mr. Chairman, I have some
Go ahead, Kate.
thoughts as well. Last year, I served on both a ranking council and the commission, and we had requests from Friends of the Utah Avalanche Center to support, what is a federal program, the Utah Avalanche Center, which does amazing work. None of this is a takeaway from anyone's amazing outdoor recreation piece of the puzzle that is important for Utahns and those that visit Utah. We had requests from the U.S. Forest Service for projects. We had requests from the BLM. We had cities and counties that were requesting money, and then we had nonprofit organizations that are aligned with specific counties or specific regions of the state. And in my ranking council, and then in November at the full commission meeting, we had an interesting discussion about what the legislative intent was, where the emphasis on funds should go when we're specifically considering projects that involve our federal partners, where these funds come from state sources. And my view of the legislative intent was an emphasis on state and local projects to help spread recreational users out and deal with some of those local impacts, and that some of those are dovetail really well with federal projects, and we shouldn't rule out federal projects, but to be thoughtful about that. And so I have a little bit of concern about considering a project one out of cycle and not in comparison to all of these other things when I anticipate that we may have projects that come in for projects on from the Forest Service or other entities that are also key components of an overall outdoor recreation picture. And so I feel like it deserves probably some deep discussion before we would kind of abandon a process that is still a little bit in its infancy, and throw it out the window when we've just gotten that established.
Yeah, I'm actually agree with everything you just said. I think that I'm new here, but I feel like the process should play out. I know a lot of things seem urgent at the time, but I think even approving this, it'll take time to come out anyway. So I feel like we should go through the process and look at everything, how we're going to spend the taxpayer dollars. So, and I think that we need a lot more details, and I think as we get those details, we have to do the process anyway. So I think we should go through the process, the normal process.
Yep, and just on the division's perspective on this is funding that has been the authority to spend this funding has been appropriated to the commission. So it's not most of our grants are granted or appropriated to the division, and we take advice from different bodies. This one is definitely different. The authority rests with the body. So it is up to the members of this commission to make this decision, and we're here to provide a little bit of the structure. Patrick and Carly have referenced, and yeah, I would agree.
All right. Yeah, Pitt, go ahead.
Sorry, just one more question. Natalie, you're probably the most in touch with a lot of these gateway communities. What's the fear level, the non-fear level, with impacts going into the busy season? What are you hearing from the different businesses and stakeholders?
It's still hard right now. I think we've been addressing a lot of the federal changes that have been occurring currently in the current state of the current administration. And so all of our conversations, they ebb and flow with the communities. I would say overall, there's concern from communities about what the future looks like. Maybe not immediately right now, but there's definitely a concern of the future and the impacts that it will have, especially with decreased funding to these public areas. I would say specific to this conversation, I'm interested in exploring this more. I'm interested in better understanding, what these investments would look like. I appreciate the process as well and would like to navigate it. My concern is around stakeholder engagement. I'm a little bit concerned that Commissioner Taylor didn't know about this request. And so, for all of our national parks, if we want to be equitable in how these dollars are distributed to all of the 5 national parks, we need to make sure that all of those communities are engaged in the process.
Yeah, I thanks for the kind of the insight there. And I second that, like the community engagement side of things and the process of the regional councils, like that's the purpose of it. So, if we are going to do this, not necessarily going through the regional councils, but some form of that community engagement and stakeholder engagement is key. I will add, I'm also interested in hearing more about this, share some similar concerns, but also see that, if there is good engagement at all of these potential locations, that's what I feel exactly this fund was set up for, because it will impact, off the top of my head, 10, 12, 13 counties, in one funding request, which, that was the purpose of this fund, is to do these regionally impactful that are going to impact, larger scale than just one municipality or one county that the UORG grant fund has been taking care of and handling. So again, that's why I'm enticed by this as well. If you think about how many counties, if you do truly have engagement and activation with all of the different park units, it's substantial, the communities that it touches across the state. So, yeah, that's what intrigues me about this for sure.
Okay. Do we have any comments from anyone, any other commissioners or the public? Okay. Thank you. I think we're going to move to the next item on the agenda.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Yep, thank you. We'll move to agenda item number 7, Open Public Meetings Act and Government Records Access Management Act Annual Training. Shane Stroud and Nicole will be presenting.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know this is the favorite part of your meeting where you get to do the Open Meetings Training Act, Conflict of Interest, and we're going to cover GRAMA really quickly. So my name's Nicole Hanna. This is the first time that I've appeared before you guys, so I'm going to give you a brief introduction. I've been working for the state for 15 years. This is the first time that I've ever actually gotten thanked in a public meeting in 15 years. So Director Curry, Director Strong, I just wanted to say that.
Turn your mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you not hear me? I have a really loud voice.
We can hear you anyway. But
So I just want to say thank you to both of you. Your teams have been outstanding to work with. It's lovely to be here. I truly believe in everything that both departments do. We own a horse, we have dogs, we do a lot of camping and hiking, and in fact I went to law school out here because my husband was in Iraq at the time and said, wherever you go to law school, just make sure that it has mountains. So that was a good compromise in the first year of our marriage, which was the easiest year of a marriage ever because he wasn't there. And 28 years later, he's still not here. He's in Denver for a week, but all is well. So I used to try to make this very engaging. I had comics. It was a lot of fun. And then all the feedback that I got was just make it fast. So we are going to go through this very, very quickly. If you have not ever received this training and you have any kind of questions or concerns about any of the stuff that I say today, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Shane Stroud, and we'll be more than happy to walk you through anything that you'd like to walk through. I do try to keep this very general. I have looked at your board in particular, and I have a couple of recommendations. But other than that, just also to let you know, Shane and I represent the board. We also represent the Division of Outdoor Recreation and the Division of State Parks. To the extent that you are aligned, the board is aligned with the Division of Outdoor Recreation or State Parks, that that is okay with us ethically in terms of representation. If for any reason there would be a situation in which the board ceased to be aligned, then one of us would take over representation of the committee, one would take over representation of the state entity, and we will make that determination if that ever comes up. It has not come up in 15 years. So very quickly, we're gonna talk about the two different kinds of conflicts that they have, and there was a annual training for boards and commissions handout that I believe Carly has for you guys, so you can kind of follow along with me. Again, we're going to be going through this very, very quickly, but you can reach out to me anytime to discuss this. And as you saw earlier in the meeting, there are two different kinds of conflicts. There are actual conflicts and perceived conflicts. Both are defined by law. An actual conflict, you have to have a substantial business ownership interest of 10% or more, or it has to be owned by a spouse or one of your children. Basically, you have to in some way be either economically or financially impacted by the decisions this board makes. And that can be a positive or a negative way to be impacted. And so in those cases where you feel that you have a direct conflict, you're always welcome to reach out to us and ask if we feel that that's a conflict. If not, you're also welcome to do exactly what the gentleman did during this meeting, which is just say that you request to abstain, and then you state the nature of the reason why you're abstaining from the vote. It's usually not an issue, and then it wouldn't be counted towards the quorum. Perceived conflicts are a little bit different. Perceived conflicts are ones that there isn't an actual legal conflict under the law, but basically what I would say is if you go to the Deseret News or the Salt Lake Tribune and you imagine the headline, those are the kinds of things that we could, possibly perceive, if you had a neighbor, if you had a good friend, or someone that they thought what you were intentionally kind of favoring in this process, because government is supposed to be transparent and everyone is supposed to be on an equal footing. So those are the two different types of conflicts. For a perceived conflict, you don't necessarily have to abstain from voting. It's up to you. And there's also a way in which if you feel like you have a conflict, you can fill out a conflict of interest form that gets filed with the Attorney General's office. That is a public record. I fill one out every year because I'm on my parents' board of directors for their company. I don't actually think that it makes a difference. They don't live in Utah anymore, but I'm extremely conservative with it. I think anyone can kind of make their own determination about whether or not they are. And again, if you guys have questions, come talk to me about it. But basically, you need to worry about whether you feel or not that your independent judgment is impaired by a specific conflict. In terms of gifts, I'm sure you guys have gotten the talk about gifts and bribes and all of the different things that you can and cannot do. What I like to say is there is a general rule that you can accept $50 or less in some type of benefit because of your work with the state. There was then Governor Huntsman's ethics order that said no, $50 still is nothing. I think it's really challenging to do business in the state or to be part of business and not ever accept a free glass of water or a soda or something. So my general guidance to everyone is if you go out to lunch with someone and this is on state business, then try to keep it in the per diem rates. So the difference is between going to Applebee's and Ruth's Chris. And I prefer the latter, but usually you're not going to be able to do that for the per diem. So that's kind of the general basis of that. And we can get into a lot more details, but I think it's enough to kind of say that, and then if you guys have concerns, we can talk about that privately, and I have no issue doing that. Similarly, if you guys are doing business, you can't require anyone to donate something to the state. You can request it, but it can't be made with a condition, and we call that the quid pro quo. So as long as you don't have a quid pro quo, we're good. No one on the board receives compensation for their time on the board, although you guys are given some travel per diems and other things. So I don't think that that's an issue. And obviously there are felonies if you guys get really naughty. There are misdemeanors if you're not quite as naughty. But basically, I've never had to prosecute any of these in 15 years, so I just kind of ask every committee and board that I represent, please don't be the first. It would be great. It's great for everybody. It's not very much fun to see your name in the newspaper like that. Does anybody have any questions? That is conflict in a nutshell. Okay, seeing none, everyone's probably, this is why I usually do this at the beginning, because everybody's kind of tuned out by this point, but that's okay. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep pushing it through. All right, so now we're going to go to Open and Public Meetings Act. So the point behind the Open and Public Meetings Act is that the government should take actions, and they should take them transparently, and they should be held accountable for the actions that they take. There's no question that you guys are subject to the Open and Public Meetings Act. Even though you're advisory committee, you are still supported by the Department of Recreation and the Department of Natural Resources, Division of Outdoor Recreation, Department of Natural Resources, and those are both state entities, so we use taxpayer money to fund those. Let's see. So you guys know that you need to have a quorum present in order to have a meeting. That's just a simple majority in your case. And you have to have all the other things. Authorized person has to convene it, has to be convened for the purpose of discussing what you have jurisdiction or advisory capacity over. You can have an all-electronic meeting in certain cases. Most of the time, however, though, you need to have both an anchor location and then also you can do a hybrid kind of mix. If you ever wanted to do something that wasn't at the regular location, please talk to me about it, and I will walk you through all the details on how to do that correctly, all of the appropriate notices that you have to provide to everyone. Okay, so very quickly, what notice is required? So you have you have to have at least have things posted for 24 hours before you have the meeting, and you have to have an agenda, date, time, and location for the meeting. The agenda needs to be specific enough that someone from the public that wasn't very familiar with what's being discussed would be able to look at the agenda and determine that that was being discussed that day. One of the things that I think is helpful on an agenda in the future, if you guys would like to do it, is you can do action items and discussion items, and then that way the action item shows that that's something that the committee would be taking action on, as opposed to something that the committee's not just discussing. If it's not on the agenda, it doesn't mean you can't discuss it, it just means you can't make any final action on it, okay? In terms of notice, the Division of Outdoor Recreation is going to take care of most of your notice requirements. They still do require posting on the outside of the front door or in some other conspicuous area so that people can see where they need to go. I did have a question one time about whether you could close the door during these meetings, and the answer to that is you absolutely can if you need privacy, but there needs to be a way that people from the public can still access the meeting. You have to keep written minutes of the meeting and all aspects of the meeting, so discussions, motions, deliberations, that all has to be open to the public, okay? The other thing that your minutes need to include: date, time, and place of the meeting, names of the members, substance of the matters proposed, discussed, or decided, record by individual member of votes taken. And so that's going to bring it back when I asked you guys for a roll call vote. It's not because of any other reason than this legal requirement where we want to hold people accountable for how they voted or did not vote on things. I think for non-substantive matters, for example, for approving the meeting minutes, I think a unanimous vote is absolutely okay, or to open or close the meeting, which you technically don't need to vote for, but anytime you have anything substantive, you need to do a roll call vote. I was also told by the governor's office that the governor's preference is that everyone would be able to see your face while you are voting. So if you, for some reason, don't have access to a camera, I was just told that was his preference, the administration's preference. So take that and run with it as you will. There's a difference between pending written minutes and the actual approved minutes. So the pending minutes have to be up 30 days before within 30 days of the meeting. The approved minutes, you only have 3 days. So we do want to make sure that we have everything posted. And just from personal experience, I have had clients that have been audited on this, and the auditor's office is very, very concerned with compliance with the Open Meetings Act. So just as a heads up, that's very, very important. And just remember that we can't modify any of these recordings, and we are in a public meeting, so if you say something, It's going to be recorded. We can't go back and redact it, and we can't go back and take it out. I've had situations where people forget that they're in a public meeting. Someone mentioned somebody else's DUI at one point. That was probably not the best thing to do in a public meeting. So just, I know it's hard at the end of the day like this, but just remember that everything is being recorded, please. Okay, so disruptions, if someone is disruptive, either online or in person, you can remove them from the meeting. And obviously the violations, you know, again, you're talking attorney's fees and costs, and really the biggest thing about it is that when you have something like this that's very small and procedural, it can impact the substantive important part of what you're trying to do, because it takes away from the integrity of the board or the committee as a whole, or it can. And that's something that you never want to mess with, because public perception and public support for these programs is really, really important, as well as state support. Okay, so you can close meetings. I looked through, and there aren't a lot of things that apply to you guys in terms of the closed meetings. If you would like to ever close a meeting and you have a reason as to why you would like to close that meeting, please reach out. I'm more than happy to talk with you through that, and I can walk you through exactly how to do it and whether or not it is appropriate in that particular instance. So that is your open meetings training. Does anyone have any questions? I know it was quick. And I know it was fast, but again, all of this is written down in that handout that will all be made available to you if it hasn't been already, and that's on the public notice website. We also have copies of the conflict of interest form if you're concerned about that. So, seeing no questions, we are going to move on to GRAMA. All right, this is the important thing about GRAMA. GRAMA is the Government Records Access Management Act. And there are things that are records and there are things that are not records. Most things that we do in the state are records. So books, letters, documents, papers, maps, plans, photographs, films, cards, tapes, recordings, electronic data, or other documentary material, regardless of its physical forms or characteristics. Those are all records. There are certain things that are not records. I'm sure you guys heard in the news and in the courts about Sean Reyes and not disclosing his calendar and whether or not that was or was not a record. There's debate about it. The court came back and said that it counted and that he had to disclose it. So just be conscientious of that. You can't, things like personal notes are not necessarily records, but they can become records. So again, if you guys have any questions, come and talk to me about it. So the big thing about GRAMA that I want to talk with you guys about, because most of this stuff is handled by records officers, and so you don't need to worry about it. The thing that I would mention is that these provisions apply both to any state cell phones or state devices, and also to your personal cell phones and personal devices. So if you're using any personal devices to do state business, we would have to take those if we got a GRAMA request and clone them. There's a good reason, therefore, for using a state phone if that's available. If not, I think that it's important to remember that the substance of the communication triggers the GRAMA Act, and not where the communication originates from. And basically, what I like to say is, again, if you don't want to see it as, you can imagine your worst enemy getting hold of the worst thing that you've ever done and then putting it in the newspaper or on social media. And that's what you want to prevent against, basically, is that from happening. So just be conscientious, be appropriate, be respectful. I know it's very easy when you're doing text messages back and forth to get sometimes a little bit snarky or a little bit sarcastic, and I'm just as guilty as the next person of doing that, but just please be conscientious of that, and that is a responsibility for all of you as board members. The other last thing I'm going to say about GRAMA really quickly is, if you're in a board or committee meeting and you are sending texts to anyone or using any kind of device or writing emails or anything, please do not communicate with someone else on the board while you're doing that. If you do that, that becomes a record that is part of the committee meeting, and we technically have to post that. So I'm not talking about communicating with your spouse or partner about your dog doesn't feel well or kids or something, but communicating with someone else on the board, I think, is something that should be avoided at all costs if possible. Does anybody have any questions? I'm done otherwise. I know it was quick.
I like that.
All right. Okay, and again, just finally, seriously, if anything's confusing, please just come and talk to me about it. I promise I will walk you through it very, very carefully. Thank you for having me.
I'm thanking you in a public meeting.
Yes, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Yeah, so that we have the agenda item number 8 now for a general public comment. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment? Okay, then I'll entertain one final motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.